The Freedom Challenge is one of those events that you can never really adequately describe to someone. It is so extreme and so far beyond what the average person can wrap their head around that it almost seems confined to a close community of people. The mental and physical emotions, the hardships and the triumphs of crossing 2,400 kilometers from one side of South Africa to the other, from Pietermaritzburg to Paarl on a bicycle, are something that can only really be understood by taking part. This race has that magical ingredient that not even those that finish it can put their finger on. It allows you to achieve superhuman feats, and yet cause you to be more humble than you ever were. A race that will force you to assess your own character and fundamentally change your attitude and outlook on life. But when we heard that the 4 athletes that had all dedicated many years of their lives to riding and perfecting their strategy to win the screening race would all be racing together, head to head, for the first time ever, we decided to pack up our camera gear and once again head out to capture the human drama as the race at the front unfolds, as well as take in the plentiful changing landscapes, often brutal weather conditions, and unique characters across 2,400 kilometers of open countryside. This is the story of the Freedom Challenge. Comfortably one of South Africa's most accomplished mountain climbers and adventurers, having previously climbed to the top of Mount Everest and trekked to the South Pole, Alex Harris has the perfect combination of a strong physical presence, calculating and methodic race strategy, and heaps of unwavering determination. In 2010, Alex did what many people thought was impossible as a Freedom Challenge rookie, and demolished the existing record and re-established the benchmark at 14 days and 8 hours. Alex starts the race from Pietermaritzburg in a batch 2 days ahead of the other 3 race contenders, and with only a few riders out on the course ahead of him, none of who will be able to match his pace, solitude will inevitably become his friend. The quiet and reserved Glenn Harrison is one of the real characters of the race. In 2009, Glenn was the first person to finish the race on a tandem mountain bike with his friend Mike Wilner. Then in 2010, he returned on a rigid frame, rigid fork, single speed bike with 29-inch wheels. And then in a totally unpredictable move, he blitzed the course in 15 days, setting up the 7th fastest time out of the 127 people that have completed the race to date. This year, Glenn is back on his single speed bike and will be looking to better this time. Riding a single speed bike requires a whole different approach and set of skills than the usual 27 speed bikes. With mechanical failure virtually eliminated and the substantially reduced weight, single speeding is more about the very simplistic act of riding a bike. Back for his 4th attempt at the Freedom Challenge race across South Africa, and having pulled out only days after the start in 2010, Andrew Barnes certainly has a score to settle with the event and with himself. Deciding that having a partner to keep him company and well motivated over the next 2 weeks is a winning strategy, he has elicited the help of undoubtedly South Africa's most experienced and competent multi-day adventure racer, Martin Dreyer. Coming from a paddling background and having won the Doozy Canoe Marathon on 7 occasions, Martin will be a valuable asset to Barnes in his quest to break Alex Harris's race record. But will the dynamics between the two strengthen their challenge, or will it be the undoing of the whole exercise? And this team dynamic was put to the test on the very first day whilst crossing through the Umkomaas Valley.
Barnes and I going along the water's edge, trying to be a little bit sneaky, walking in the water, unsighted of the rocks, and I took a fall where I thought I had balance on a rock. My foot slipped off and went through a little crevice and it sliced my shin. You want to avoid injury at all costs in a race like this where you're unsupported out there on your own. It's not going to stop me unless something else happens and it gets infected and who knows what.
They say that you make your own luck, but this was the first of a series of events that would plague this duo on their run into the finish, still some 2 weeks and 2,000 kilometers away in Paarl. In the small farming town of Donnybrook, the duo were disappointed to find that the local doctor's office was closed for the day, another early race setback. But with all great expeditions, it's not the problems that are important, it's how you recover from them. And Andrew and Martin set about a strategy to get the deep gash stitched up and dressed.
No, but I don't want you to drive there, and I promise you'll get lost. Trust me. A friend of mine's a doctor, so he's going to come up and stitch Martin up this evening. But because he doesn't quite know where to go, my dad will fetch him and bring him up tonight. So hopefully we'll be there about 9:10.
We can carry on, but it's just a matter of it's day 1 of 14 days, and there could be infection, and yeah, that's just the niggling part. If the glands swell up and the body starts sort of reacting negatively, then it's just going to make it impossible to carry on.
With the doctor on the way to meet them at the next support station of Insekeni Nature Reserve, still a massive 75 kilometers away, Martin and Andrew are forced to ride well into the late night, with every hour of exposure increasing the risk of infection in Martin's shin. As the most experienced athlete in the 9-year history of the Freedom Challenge, Tim James is back for his 4th attempt at the race. Having held the course record for the whole of 2008 and 2009 by a massive margin of just under 2 days, Tim almost single-handedly pioneered the racing element of this iconic cross-continental event. Always convinced that he could go faster, lighter, and be more efficient, Tim encouraged all those that came after him to work out a strategy to better the times he had set. Determined not to fade into the history books, Tim James again found himself on the start line, ready to uphold his mantle as King of the Freedom Challenge. It's now generally accepted that to set up a good race strategy, competitors have to ride through 2 support stations on the first day to reach Insekeni Lodge, over 190 kilometers from the start. This includes an incredible 6,500 meters of cumulative altitude gain. Being a self-supported event, it is up to each person to decide where and when to stop, and rest and replenish their energy levels. More often than not, a hot cup of coffee or soup can do more for the mind in helping combat fatigue than the physical strength it replaces.
There's one more river to cross, then another huge climb into Insekeni. I'm only going to get there 2 o'clock tonight, I guess, if I'm lucky. I guess I've got 4 hours to go still.
All of the 100 competitors that annually enter the race across South Africa, or the shorter introductory Ride to Roads, know what they are in for when they sign on the dotted line. Committing to a truly out-there adventure that sees them traverse across the broad spectrum of South African landscapes, biospheres, and cultures. An entirely off-road journey that will regularly see them portaging the bike over saddles and watersheds, taking them to some other remote valley or high mountain ridgeline. Seeking out the best, ungroomed natural trails that exist on the planet. A true test of the human spirit, the soul of mountain biking. During the course of filming the Freedom Challenge, we get to meet and interact with a wide variety of different personalities, all with their own motivations and agendas for being there. At the end of it all, there is very definitely a deep bond that exists between the handful of men and women that make it to the finish each year. With Martin Dre's Freedom Challenge hanging in the balance, his leg is successfully stitched up, and the harsh reality of his situation begins to set in. An infection at this stage could not only mean the end of his race, but have far more serious long-term repercussions. With the stress and fatigue that he will no doubt still experience, his body will be in no state to fight off additional infections, leaving both Martin and Andrew with some serious important decisions to make. June sees the changing of the seasons in South Africa, and as autumn gives way to winter, the country begins to experience its most varied and unpredictable weather conditions. The constant onslaught of cold fronts sweeping across the country that brings with them everything from snowstorms to torrential downpours. The weather always plays a major role in the outcome of the Freedom Challenge race. A cattle trail that takes a few minutes to negotiate in the dry may take several hours in the mud. And whilst riding with a 30km/h tailwind will save you hours, riding into the same headwind can push you to the brink of quitting. One thing is for certain, The weather will adversely affect every single ride at one point or another. Dealing with it is just part of the challenge. Having left Martin and Andrew at Insekeni, we drove on to meet up with Alex Harris just before he was about to begin the massive 3-hour portage up the infamous Lahanas Pass, a small shepherd's track that crests up and over the mighty Drakensberg mountains. We could tell that Alex was anxious about the wind that had picked up and was growing in strength by the minute. Our plan was not to go to the top of Lahana with Alex, but when we could feel something coming, we risked it and just decided to go with him. As night fell, we were again reminded about the harsh realities of being totally exposed to the elements. With snow on the ground and a biting wind chill, warm race gear is absolutely the key to staying alive. Once onto the ridgeline, Alex reaches the highest point in the race on Nordia's Neck Pass. Satisfied he has now broken the back of the race and can expect his riding times to steadily increase in the remaining 1,800 kilometers to Paarl. Also battling the elements just behind Alex, Tim James had spent the night sleeping alongside the path on a technical navigation section, just 40 minutes short of making it to the support station at Vuvu.
Yeah, part of my strategy is always to sleep during the hours that I should be asleep at home, and so at 5 o'clock, even although I knew I was just 40 minutes or so from Vuvu, I just lay in the path where I was. I've got a bivvy and I've got a sleeping bag. I had some soup, slept solidly for 2 hours, woke up with the sun in my face at 7:30, and here I am.
Having been through the highs and lows of this journey many times before, Tim James takes some time out to give some important advice to a fellow rider that is questioning his motivation to continue.
He was saying that last night, coming up this road, pushing up the last couple of kilometers up the hill, he was ready to give up and he didn't think he could carry on. And I've been in that situation many times in the Freedom Challenge as well. And you know, you can't make those decisions at night, whether it's in the Freedom Challenge or at home when you've got a huge mountain to climb. You just somehow, a couple of hours sleep, a bit of food, and you'll make a totally different decision to what you would have when you're really, really tired. And if you can realize that in your really, really dark moments, you know, tomorrow it's not going to be that bad.
The non-stop nature of this race opens up a whole world of complexities, as riders need to constantly juggle the need for sleep and recovery with the determination to go forward. Getting this balance wrong will see even the fastest riders suffer from sleep deprivation and fatigue. And as the mind and body grow increasingly weary, riders begin to make careless mistakes and bad decisions. Now over 12 hours behind Alex Harris on their relative race standings, Martin and Andrew finally feel like they are getting back into a rhythm, when they are dealt another cruel blow.
Frame broke in half, so we managed to find a broomstick and put a broomstick through, which got us to a farmhouse. And then we managed to find a farmer who put a steel pipe in there and drilled a hole and managed to fix it. But it's thrown us off quite a lot. We've wasted 2.5 hours today. We've been going since 2 o'clock this morning, so quite keen to get to where we're going.
In order to keep in the race, Andrew Barnes again calls on his father's assistance, who then drives out a replacement bike for him. Receiving a replacement bike earns them a 6-hour time penalty. Uncertain about when they need to serve their time penalty, Andrew Barnes calls race organizer Dave Wadilove for clarification.
David, what's the story? What if I...
Okay, the story about the time penalty, we had a discussion around it. 6 hours within the next 24 hours after changing the bike.
But then we can sleep tomorrow for 6 hours.
Huh?
It's better now. We were going to get
No, we're just swearing about you.
Realizing that they have to serve out their time penalty during daylight hours, a clearly despondent Martin and Andrew push on to the next support station at Moordenaarsput, close to Berkeley East in the southern Drakensberg.
Okay, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. We're now going to go to Moordenaarsput, which we think is going to take us about 7 hours. and we'll serve our daylight penalties there.
The next morning, we pushed on from Slaapkrans to find Glenn Harrison heading towards Moordenaarsport on his lightweight single speed. A successful freedom challenge largely comes down to managing your body and your equipment properly. And in stark contrast to the issues Martin and Andrew are having with injuries and bikes, Glenn seems to be enjoying every minute of his hassle-free ride. Arriving at the Moordenaarsport support station at 11 am, now a full day behind Alex Harris on relative standings, Glenn spends a few minutes restocking his supplies and then heads back out just as Martin and Andrew arrive to serve their 6-hour time penalty. At the very heart of the Freedom Challenge are the people that run and manage the 23 support stations along the route. Available to riders wanting to ride sections of the Freedom Trail at any time of the year. These support stations are an equal mix of community-run homestay accommodation, farmhouses, small hotels, and nature reserve facilities. These sanctuaries of smiling faces, warm food, and comfortable beds are what keep riders motivated to keep going from day to day. 7 days into his 12-day racing strategy, we caught up with Alex Harris at Van der Venterskraal, just past Cradock in the Eastern Cape. It was impressive to see how efficiently Alex moved through the support stations, falling into a routine of unpacking, eating, sleeping, replenishing, repacking, and heading out. This well-oiled routine allowed him to maximize the time spent on his bike moving forward towards his chosen objective. There is often a fine line between solitude and loneliness, and we were always surprised to see how happy Alex was to see us. A brief distraction from this routine, an opportunity to spend some time alone inside their own heads, to take a step back and assess your direction and ambitions in life, and make some potentially life-altering decisions. We had not seen Tim for a few days, and we were not quite sure where he was. We finally found him just after he had dropped into the Karoo and was on the long flat road into Hofmeyer. He had met up with another Freedom Challenge stalwart, Marnitz Nienaber. Marnitz was on his third attempt at the race, and had finished third the year before, just 26 hours after Alex Harris's record-breaking time of 14 days and 8 hours. However, it was clear that Tim was stronger than Marnitz, and was starting to get a bit frustrated with the pace.
Yeah, I've had 2 wonderful days with 2 or 3 with Marnitz. We've had good times together. I think I don't know. I think it's time for me to get going. He's about 10 minutes down the road, I think. I've got to be in my bonnet now. I want to get to Cape Town in a hurry.
As the Freedom Challenge moved towards the Baviaanskloof, we were expecting more drama, as extensive flooding in the Groot Rivier Basin had caused a massive dump of debris over some of the remote trails that the riders had to negotiate. We found Martin, Andrew, and a rider they had caught up from an earlier batch, Paulie Rasmus, struggling through the carnage. Once free of the Groot Rivier aftermath, the 3 began the long climb out of the Baviaanskloof, which would see them riding well into the night.
I think it'll work. My friend's just gone straight over his head. into such a deep stream. Yeah.
My turn, he was lost.
Feel free.
Yes!
This would be the last time we saw Andrew Barnes. Unbeknown to us, he was suffering from a sore quad muscle, and just 36 hours later, he would withdraw from the race, leaving Martin to continue on alone.
His left quad started giving him a lot of pain, and so much so that he was just going very slow and had to walk the hills. But at Rondalvels, at the halfway stop, he said, no, it's not going to work for him. There's still some big climbs, 3 more days to go, and he decided to call it quits.
Andrew Barnes still only has 1 official race finish after 4 attempts at the Freedom Challenge, and it will be interesting to see whether he makes his way back one day to settle the score. Also suffering at the hands of the elements, Glenn adjusts his race strategy to negotiate around strong winds that are common at this time of the year in the Great Karoo. Still a whole 24 hours behind Alex's relative time at Damsedrift, Glenn continues his ambitious riding schedule in the off chance that Alex has some mechanical or weather issues up the road ahead of him.
I think it's to try and get to Prince Albert tomorrow afternoon, hopefully before sunset. And then do it all again, basically see how I feel. I'm hoping that by riding now at night I'm making use of the good weather, because the wind's been howling the last 4 days and we've been pedaling into a headwind the whole time, which has made it really hard. So heading off to Willowmore, which is about 90 k's away. I should get there at about 4 in the morning.
Whilst heading through the Baviaanskloof, Alex Harris had finally caught up with Eugene Nell and Garth Flanders, who had started in one of the first of the 10 batches to go off 2 weeks earlier. Arriving at the final support station in the Drakensberg Valley, just 50 kilometers from the finish, Alex and Eugene are visibly shattered after 33 hours of continuous riding since their last sleep.
Oh, it was miserable, eh? Cold and wet, the worst type of conditions you can get actually. So it wasn't lekker.
And yet they have to prepare themselves for the final and biggest hurdle of the entire race. The 8-kilometer portage up the brutal Drakensberg Valley, which brings them out at the bottom of the Drakensberg Pass just kilometers from the finish line. Race organizer Dave Wadilove insists that the track up the Drakensberg Valley is an important part of the Freedom Challenge journey, forcing competitors to slow down just kilometers from the finish and begin to digest the experience that they have just undertaken. It also serves as a humbling element to what is ultimately a Herculean achievement.
Yeah, relieved, eh? Yeah, I know. It's been edgy stuff the last few days. I mean, literally, we had like an hour last night, 2 hours the night before that, and it's been like that for about 4 or 5 days, you know. So that can only lead to one thing: insanity.
Incredibly, just 19 hours after Alex Harris's new record time of 12 days and 15 hours, Glenn Harrison rolls into the finish line at Diemersfontein on his single-speed bike, breaking his own single-speed record by over 2 full days. Over the next 3 days, the rest of the race contenders covered the last few meters of this monumental journey, to cross the line to a low-key ceremony where they are each awarded their race blankets, the traditional Basotho symbol for those having successfully completed their rite of passage into adulthood.
Yeah, Bonzi, sorry man that you had to drop out and your leg was sore. Yeah, but I must say I'm very pleased personally to be here.
You know, on day 2, I found a patch of grass high up in the mountains and I lay there for 2 hours and trying to decide whether to go home or to carry on, and yeah, I'm really glad I carried on.
Every mountain biker should make it and do it. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but it's now finish and klaar. I'm starting running or something else, playing chess.
To me though, the whole Freedom Challenge symbolizes life in that you experience different sort of ups and downs, and you got to take things on the chin and deal with them as they happen.
It's a huge experience, and it's a journey. It's an adventure. You know, Marnitz and I spent some late nights out there. You find yourself on the top of mountains, and you know, in the middle of the night, no one around, no one for miles around. It's also like being a little boy again. You know, we're out there having fun.
It feels impossible to encapsulate the full essence of this journey. This is an expedition, and there is much that happens both on the ground and in the heart. There is a transformation in oneself that takes place over the course of these days or weeks, and it's something that is taken forward into your everyday life. It could be the knowledge that you have overcome adversity against the reason of your body and mind. It could be finding that although you have been broken, you have found strength. Strength that carried you over mountains and through endless nights. and pushed you to continue when everything in you just wanted to stop. It could be the moment when pain is set aside by the beauty of experiencing a landscape in a way that no one else could. When we're at the finish line and it's time for us to go back home, we can certainly relate to these riders in thinking that we've had enough and that this will be our last freedom challenge. But one thing is for sure, and we don't know why. When the time comes round again, we can't wait to be back on the freedom trail.